Here's Barrel Trader's disclaimer. As always, we recommend that you seek professional advice from a professional to determine whether trading is right for you. So let's talk about the components of a trade book. But before that, let's talk about what exactly a trade book is. A trade book is a document which can be on your computer or it can be printed out and it can be in a book, similar to what NFL teams have for calling plays in order to hopefully win a football game, right? Or the basketball game plan, or a baseball game plan. It's where you combine everything that you know about trading into one document. That's your technology. It's what strategy you're going to trade, and it's your psychology. How do all three of those intermix and intertwine? And when you put that all together, that's the trade book. But what we really want to do, as you can see from this image, is we want to get to that trade book edge. And what that is taking your trade book, which is your recipe for success, right? And making it your own. Because a trade book, you can't take somebody else's trade book. You can't take Andrew's trade book. You can't take Carlos's trade book, Norm's trade book, John's trade book. Grab it, bring it into your computer and say, I'm going to do exactly what they do. Because it's not going to work out for you. It's the same as if you try to use your grandmother's or grandfather's recipe, right? You have the recipe, you have the ingredients, but when you try to duplicate it, it just doesn't come out quite right. And that's because there's a DNA sense that you put onto this trade book, and that is what is known as the trade book edge. And we'll talk about that and discuss what that is further. But for this module of courses, what you need to understand is that this trade book is where you're going to put everything that you know about trading and what you want to look for in a stock. And once you have that done, then it's about tweaking it and making it your own and putting your own DNA on it so that when you execute it, it becomes your trade book edge. So why even begin with a trade book, right? Like I talked about a little bit, right? It's your game plan. It's how you're going to go into the market when the bell rings at 9:30 Eastern time and the price action starts going up and down and jumping around and selling off and buying. And it's all crazy, and you got indicators going all over the place, your Bollinger Bands, your support and resistance, your pivots, your volume, your level 2, your montage is going crazy. Everything's going crazy. But you have a plan for it, and you know what you're looking for, and you're focused in on that. And when there's things that are not within that plan, you just simply discard it because you're focused in on what matters to you. There's thousands of indicators out there, which I'll show you here in a little bit. But you don't need all those indicators. You don't need all that information. You need a select few indicators that will give you the information that you want so that you're confident in executing your trade. What it allows also is at the end of the day, after you put on 1, 2, 15, 20, 30, 40 trades, how many ever trades you'd put on, it gives you a basis, a grounding that you can evaluate your trades off of. If you said you want to take a trade when it breaks the high of day, but you're taking an entry before that, you can then identify what was your reasoning. Why did you venture off from what your plan was? Was it valid, or was it just emotions that took you over? That's what a trade book does. You have laid out a plan, you have written it down or typed it, and you have put it in stone and said, this is what I'm going to trade. And now you can evaluate yourself off of how well you can execute that. And if you're having trouble executing some of that, well, then maybe you can adjust it so that it fits better within your own personality, right? Or your own trading psychology. It also allows you to measure your success as a trader. If you are executing a trade book and it is producing a negative sloping equity curve, then you probably need to take a second look at your trade book, reevaluate it, reassess it, and see what things inside that trade book are causing your equity curve to go down. And it could be in your technology bubble, it could be in your strategy circle, or your psychology circle. You never know which one it is. But one thing off in any three of those circles will adjust what that trade book edge looks like. So you want to be able to measure yourself, and that trade book gives you a valuation of that. Otherwise, you're just going in day after day, evaluating yourself off of an arbitrary metric that you established the day before based upon how you traded the day before, or the week before, or the month before. So, with that being said, what are actually in each one of these circles? So let's take a look at the technology, right? Now, this isn't all-inclusive, but this is some things, right? You have your trading tools. And when I talk about trading tools, these are how you're inputting your orders. Are you using a gaming keypad? Are you using a keyboard? Are you going to use your mouse and the digital and the montage that's on the computer? Are you using a Stream Deck? Or using some other type of tool to input the orders? For that matter, it goes into what is your trading platform, right? Well, are you using DAS? Are you using Thinkorswim? Are you using your broker's basic standard trading platform? All those kind of go into play with that. Then you have your hotkeys or hot buttons. And you might think, oh, this is a simple question. Do I use hotkeys or do I use hot buttons? And you may say, yes, I use hotkeys, or I use hot buttons, or I'm going to use the mouse. But it goes further than that. These should be identified. The hotkeys and hot buttons inside your trade book should be identified if they provide you with assistance in executing your trades. So for example, for me, I enjoy taking high of day breaks. Therefore, I ended up working with a trader in our community to develop a hotkey to where I can double click on the chart and press the enter key for a long, and it will calculate the risk from the high of day to where I double clicked, divide that amount by the dollar amount I want to risk per trade, and then submit an order for 1 cent higher than the high of day, because that's where I want my entry point to be. Now, does that may sound complicated? And it kind of is. But prior to me developing that hotkey with that trader, I had to do all those calculations manually or with a Excel spreadsheet, and then input that information into the montage. It took a while. It took time. And sometimes I missed the trade because the stock just moved way past that entry before I could get all that information processed. With the help of that hotkey, I can now simply go down to about 2 seconds, find where I want my technical stop, double click, press the enter key, the order's placed, and now I have a fixed number of shares based upon the risk that I want to take. So that hotkey aids in my trading strategy. So it helps my edge. The next is your journal selection. And this is something that I think a lot of traders forget about, is that you're not just trying to collect statistical data. Although it is important and you need it, you also need some type of journal where you can jot down certain things, such as what did I do wrong? What did I do right? How can I improve on this trade? How was I feeling today? How was the market going? Was I emotional going into it? Was I not going emotional? That information provides just as much value as what time of day did I take the trade? How many shares did I take? What was my stop? What was my risk? What was my return? Did the stock move in my direction? Were my indicators there? Were my confirmations there? That information is important too. So you want to select some type of journal that is easy for you to collect all that information in. For me, I use two. I use ChartLog and TraderView for statistical analysis, and then you also have Microsoft OneNote and Microsoft Excel. I use all four of those informations because they give me each one of them gives me a different aspect of trading that I want out of it. And then your criteria. And this can be difficult to understand, right? So when you're doing a trade analysis and you're looking at your trade, you want to be able to have criteria that you can rate yourself on that is objective as possible. And the reason I say objective as possible, because journaling criteria and evaluating a trade is very subjective, and your emotions absolutely play into how you evaluate that trade when you journal it. If you have objective measures that are out there or metrics that you can evaluate yourself on, it becomes easier when you're emotional to stick to those metrics and give you a solid base analysis of the trade that you conducted. So these are some of the basic ones. In future videos, we'll cover in depth each individual aspect of it and how it can improve your trade book. Next is your strategy, and this is the meat and potatoes, I'm not going to lie, of the trade book. A lot of your information is going to be in this area. You're going to spend a lot of time on it. Once you get your technology down, getting into your strategy is very, very simple, right? And in here, you want to identify what your strategy tenets are. And what do I mean by tenets? I mean your beliefs. What are your beliefs about trading? Do you believe in stopping out? Do you believe that you should move your stop to break even after you take a partial? What is the most important thing? Is putting on risk important? Is minimizing risk important? Is managing risk important? Is the enjoyment of taking a lot of trades each day important? I don't know. It has to come down to you and fit within your belief system. Then you have your trading rules. Now, these rules that are here are specific to this strategy. They are different than your overall trading rules. Your overall trading rules are for the entire day. The rules I'm talking about here are specific to a strategy, okay? If you trade ABCD patterns, there may be a specific type of volume setup that you're looking for. If you're trading a V reversal, there may be a certain type of candle that you're looking for to execute the trade. And if you don't see that, even though it may look like a good setup, you don't want to trade it. So again, these rules inside this strategy bubble are based upon the specific strategy that you're executing. Then you have your framework, and your framework evolves around your stock selection criteria. And we'll get into this in depth in a future video, but it's about what type of volume do you want to see? Does it matter if the stock is gapping up or down? Does short interest matter to you? What type of float do you like to trade? Also, what ATR, average true range, does that matter to you when you're going through? If these words seem foreign to you, it's okay. In a future video, we're gonna cover them in depth and how each one of those aspects can affect your strategy in a sense. Then you want risk management specific to your strategy. If you're trading an ABCD pattern, your risk management's going to be different than if you're trading an opening range breakout. If you're trading a break of high of day, it's going to be different than if you're trading a mountain pass strategy. So you want to make sure that you identify the risk management specific to the strategy that you are trading. And this also goes for the trade management. I'm going to use a mountain pass and a break of high of day, two type of trades for you. In a break of high of day, you are not looking for the trade to run that much because the majority of them just don't run that much as you're taking an entry near the top of a range. Whereas a mountain pass, you are taking the trade in the opposite direction of where it's trending, and you're at the top of that range looking either to take it short, or you're getting an entry at the bottom of the range looking to take it long. Therefore, your return on it can be much greater, which means how you manage that trade is going to be completely different per the strategy. So when you're developing your trade book, you want to make sure that you identify what your trade management strategy is going to be. Here's something that's important. You always want to keep track of what your best and worst trades were. You can keep one of each, or you can keep a couple of each, but it's important to be able to every now and then go back, look at what your best trade was and say, you know what, I can do this. And then look at your worst trade and be like, this is what I absolutely cannot execute anymore. I need to stay away from that. And it's just good reminders to bring up both the best and the worst because it will help you as you go on. And then you have your plan. And I really want to get into that aspect of this part of the strategy for you. So what is a strategy? It is basically a chart pattern that you believe gives you an edge in the market, meaning that when you trade that specific chart pattern, you will win more times than you will lose, and your returns will produce a positive equity curve. This is what a strategy overview looks like. I chose the break of high of day, one, because I trade it, but two, it's very easy to understand, and it keeps things very simple for people as we go through. So I'm just going to cover each area within this strategy plan so you know what you're looking for as you develop your trade book. So indicators, these are the things that get you interested in a stock, okay? You're basically scanning the screens and you identify, or your eyes catch a stock and you go, ooh, I need to look at that more, right? You sit up in your seat a little bit, you lean towards the computer, your heart rate gets a little excited, and you get a little nervous. Those are the things that get you interested in the stock. Those are indicators. Now, when you pull up that stock, you want to look for confirmations that your initial instinct was correct. And those things can be very similar to indicators, but they're the things that make you want to take an entry. So for this break of high of day, for me, the one thing that really makes me want to take a break of high of day trade is rising volume into the break, meaning that the volume is increasing as it's approaching that breaking point, because that's telling me that there's buyers, there's enthusiasm, people want to get into that trade. So that's a confirmation. Your entry is the point you are looking for. And this is why I chose the break of high of day. The entry point for a break of high of day for me is 1 cent higher than anybody else has been willing to pay for. Because that tells me someplace in the world there was somebody willing to push the price higher than at any other point within the trading day. So that's my entry point. Depending on the strategy you trade, depending on your risk tolerance, depending on your ability to handle risk, will determine where you want to place your entry point. But you want to try to identify that as well, what's the right word I'm looking for? As clearly as possible, so that you can repeat it over and over and over. And sometimes it might not be a level on a chart. Maybe it's something that you see down on the volume bars, or maybe it's in the level 2 that you see, or maybe it's how the last price action line is moving. But you want to clearly identify what's that tripping point that says push the button. That's what you're looking to identify here. Then your stop loss. This is a technical level where when the price comes to this, your trade is no longer valid at, and you're saying, hey, I'm getting out. Like, I'm done, I'm out, I no longer want to be in this trade. It is very important that this is a technical level and not an arbitrary level, because if it's an arbitrary level, other traders aren't looking at it. If it's a technical level, I recommend that you don't set it right at that level, because everybody, to include the computers, are looking at that. It's always good to go slightly lower if you're long, or slightly above if you're short. This gives you a little bit of wiggle room. But again, that goes into your risk tolerance. And then the last thing is your targets. You want to know when and where you want to take your partials, or where you want the stock to move to before you get out of the position completely. All right, again, very similar to what I was talking about before, is that each strategy is different in how you manage the trade. But on this page, you specifically want to identify for whatever strategy you're talking about where you want to get out. And then the last component of the trade book is psychology. And I'm a big proponent. This really is the secret to your success. It's easy to pick up the technology. It's easy to learn how to operate a system, to put in orders, to execute orders. Over time, you're going to learn price action. You're going to see your charts repeat over and over and over again. You're going to see your volume over and over and over again. But you got to find a pattern or a strategy that fits with your personality, so that it is comfortable for you to trade and for you to handle the risks that you're applying into the market. And we have some ways to help you with that. First is a trader personality profile. I think it's very important that you put this into your trade book, because it's going to help you identify what type of trader you are. There is a link for it if you go look under the psychology modules. Dr. Reed's Mastermind Pro series, he has an entire 4 videos on these, and I highly encourage you to read them and look at them, as it will give you much more in-depth information about how to fill out this trader personality profile. It will also allow you to take that profile. Then here is a performance profile, and it is done by Creda. It's under the mental edge, and this performance profile will really help you narrow in on 1 to 3 things that will improve your trading the most. And when you perform or do this profile and you take the time to actually do it, you're going to be able to identify where you personally believe your weakest link is in trading. And then you can identify, or once you've identified that, you can go and identify ways to improve that area. And you do that through proper goal setting and making sure that your goals are in line with what you want to perform. And both the performance profile and setting goals are webinars presented by Creda. They are under the mental edge, so I encourage you to check those out as well. So that was the trade book, components of a trade book. If you have any questions, do not hesitate. You can email me at mike@bearbulltraders.com, and I'd be glad to answer anything.